Hello and welcome to Ukraine Today. In our newsroom, we are joined by Mr. Jonas Nilsson, a former top Swedish army soldier and currently in Ukraine researching the Azov Battalion as well as other volunteer battalions. Welcome, Mr. Nilsson.
Thank you.
I'd like to start by asking you about your research, specifically what is the purpose of it and what are some of the highlights of your findings?
Yeah. What I found is that why people seek themselves to the different volunteer battalions. I've been in the Azov Battalion, and what you can say about the Azov battalions and the battalions that are connected to the private sector is the reason why they search themselves to this volunteer battalion is that they primarily want to defend their country.
So far in Sweden, paramilitary groups such as the Azov Battalion is illegal. But since spending time here with the fighters from the battalion, would you go back to Sweden and would you rally for the government to make these battalions legal?
That won't probably happen ever in Sweden unless the state is forced to due to an invasion and it's no other options. But in the previous century, we had something called, that was the predecessor of the National Guard. We were actually almost close to what the volunteer battalions are, which were what you can call privatized home defense for the village. And for the state to get control of that, it was also later incorporated to the regular army and then was developed to what we have today with the National Guard.
Did you join the fighting in East Ukraine? And if you can, talk a little bit about your military background as well.
I'm a former Swedish soldier, trained in the Arctic environment for Arctic warfare. And then I worked with private security in South Africa. And I'm also a former French foreign legionnaire fighting in South America, fighting the drug wars. And that's pretty much sums up my military experience. And at present day, I'm a student at the Swedish National Defense College studying political science with a focus on crisis management and security politics and warfare. So the focus on our international relations studies has, of course, been Ukraine, which is the highlight of the moment with the Russian aggression in eastern Ukraine. So during my summer off, I got some friends fighting actively for Azov. So they invited me to come and join the instructor team in the Azov Battalion.
Why do you think often foreign men and with military background and most of the time with far-right notions, why do you think they come to Ukraine to fight in the war? What do you think motivates them to come here?
As a former soldier myself, I can say that without me taking part in the fighting, but I can understand the psychology behind it, and it's if you train for something and it puts lots of time in your life to actually be really good in something, you want to put it to the test. So that's, I think, is one of the main reasons many former soldiers go. And of course, that ties them together from Europe is to fight Russian imperialism.
For you specifically, when did Ukraine become such a hot-button issue that you left your home and for the summer just came here to research the Azov Battalion?
No, it's based on solidarity with the Ukrainian and their effort to fight off intruders.
How much time did you actually spend there?
In Mariupol, 1 week, 7 days, yeah.
Mm-hmm. And you helped train these some of the volunteer battalions, some of the soldiers in these volunteer battalions. Yeah,
what we do is that people join up to the Azov Battalion through their headquarters at Maidan, and they wait for 1 week, 2 weeks, and then they are being sent to base camp to do some basic training, and that is for 2 weeks. And we go through weapon safety, basic urban warfare, everything very basic.
From your experience talking to the fighters in the Azov Battalion, did you get a sense that they have that they're loyal to the government, or there's anger towards the government.
When you join a conscription army, you're fighting for a political establishment because that's who your boss is. And when you're fighting for a free battalion, it will be something that tie them together to why they have just specifically gone to that battalion. Mm-hmm. And in some way it's politically or ideologically, or in other cases it can be the same kind of group who are fighting together in hooliganism, for instance. But you will find some dots that connect them. And the broadest dot that connects these volunteer fighters is that they want to fight for the country and not for the politicians.
Most of them have strong right-wing notions.
They have strong nationalistic, strong patriotic notions, I would say. You will find some right-wing elements, but I don't think that's the biggest magnetic force for the soldiers to join the Azov battalion.
How do you think the Ukrainian government should deal with some of these fighters who come back from the front line, were part of these volunteer battalions? Most or some have right-wing notions and are most of the time frustrated that they don't see any change once they come back to their hometowns. How do you think the government should deal with them?
I think the government deals with it poorly today, basically because it's been the volunteer battalions in a very big degree that has been holding the ground against the separatists. And now, a couple of weeks ago, the Azov battalion were supposed to fall back from Cherokee back to the base in Azov. And they put in the Marines instead to take their deployment. And it makes psychologically for a soldier or for anyone who have worked very hard for something and then someone scoops in and takes the glory for it, that will rub some people the wrong way, and I think that's not a constructive way for the government to treat the volunteer battalions. What
should the government do to potentially stop some of these fighters from turning to crime once they come back from the front line?
I don't think that will be their biggest problem. What I see here, which is quite different from my experience in French army and Swedish army, or in the Westernist society in its whole, if you take the American army, their biggest death among soldiers is actually after the war, when they come back home and suffer from post-traumatic stress syndromes. I think that will be the real challenge for the Ukrainian society, to actually deal with all this, not just volunteer forces, but also in the regular army.
I understand you were part of the Swedish right-wing movement with Mr. Michael Skilt.
Yeah.
He previously, the BBC dubbed him as a white power warrior from Sweden. But now an article has come out by the Daily Signal,
yeah,
where you specifically tell the readers that he has changed and he no longer sees things in black and white since fighting in East Ukraine. Do you notice these same tendencies in other Azov battalion fighters?
I can't really say that I have seen too much change amongst those people I've spoken to who has been in the front line, but it's also been a very short period of time for reflection. But I think what's happened is, if you believe in far right-wing politics or national socialism, its ideas were based on to preserve people with force, and to claim the means of production to the state, and that's a violation against the property rights and non-aggression principles. And what I think happens when people who see combat and the end of violence, where it takes you, that give you some reflection that maybe force isn't the best political idea to use to get your points away.
Thank you for joining me today in the newsroom.
Yeah, thank you.
This has been Mr. Jonas Nilsson here in the newsroom. He is a former Swedish army soldier, and he is here in Ukraine researching the Azov battalion. And I'm Tamara Rosevan in Kiev for Ukraine Today.